Hey, gotcha, Bagoose. Hi. I'm trying to make these a little bit more frequent. Just been kind of busy. Summer's kicking up, and no, thank you to anyone that is dropping by to see a dork try and draw pictures. The world is depressing and full of bumming things and whatever. Far too often. We all need pickups. I'm here to doodle and do silly things and try to talk nerdy to a very nerdy niche who hopefully doesn't mind just just having a little quiet space to just kind of hear a dum-dum talk about his hobbies and try to keep some real artwork flowing around in the world. Not the greatest artwork, I will never claim that, believe me, but just, some good old hand-drawn dino effort going on. So let's do that. And I'm not going to waste too much time with the preliminaries. But yeah, just going to have a good little evening here and just try to keep sharp on the art stuff, and got a few things to talk about just for funsies. But I had mentioned last week that for those of us devoted going to G-Fest, Godzilla Fest in Chicago this year, we had an interesting but not very, I guess, not super legendary lineup of guests. And again, that's no disrespect to the people that are showing up, but just it's nice when you have sort of a big tentpole figure, like when Takarada was alive, or one of the Godzilla suit actors, or just a director, or somebody who it's like, wow, they were a big mover and shaker in the feature, not like we got a cosplayer or whatever. Just, there's just people you get more excited about than others, but they actually added a very to me, a very appealing name. Just somebody who I've enjoyed watching for the last number of years. And let me... Well, I guess before I get to that, yeah, just... I'm looking forward to the trip. It's always a little bit stressing and taxing, but it's just nice. It's nice to get out of the house and take the little sojourn, as it were. But there's my... here we go. So we're going to be joined at G-Fest this year by Miss Megumi Kobayashi. She was Mal, however you want to pronounce her name, depending on the version you watch, in the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy. That's cool. I like that. She also recently appeared in Megumi Odaka's little fan-funded movie, Hoshi 35. They're friends in real life. I guess they've done work together, so she was a part of that movie as well, and it was nice to see her. I immediately recognized her, and I was like, yay, more Toho faces that I know. So Miss Kobayashi will be joining, and that was just that was cool to see. It's like, all right, yeah, this is kind of more what I was hoping for. Just another face that graced the screen and gave us somebody we like in front of the camera. Yeah, I am pleased. I like that. It's too bad we couldn't get both of them, but apparently this is Miss Kobayashi's first North American convention. And I always feel nervous about that, because the last time we had that situation, I believe, was Mishaku from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. I don't think she'd ever been to an American convention before that particular one. So, yeah. She said she had a great time, and it looked like she had a good time. I don't think we completely overwhelmed her. But I always have that little bit of nervousness when we are told, like, oh, this is their first American convention. I'm like, oh no, we're going to drive them off. They're never going to want to come see us again. Oh no. But you know, I like to think most of us present ourselves well enough, even if we are cringe. And believe me, I am absolutely cringe, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So, speaking of Toho Media, I have to say before we get rolling, well, actually, wait a minute. Just, sorry, checking my settings on something real quick. Okay, we're good. Okay. But, yeah, let me just go ahead and get rolling with the artwork, because I can yap and I can doodle at the same time. I don't need to waste too much time on preliminaries. So I'm going to get that set up here real quick. Doodly-doo. Make sure I got my blanks. Yep, I got my blanks. Alright. So yeah, we're ready to get rolling here pretty quick. Did want to just throw out, so I'm going to be... I'm sorry if it feels like I did a little bit of false advertising with the thumbnail. I'm not doing anything -1 related. I forgot to make a thumbnail last night, and I couldn't do one this morning because I am still a working stego. So I did not have time to make a proper thumbnail this morning, so I'm sorry if it seemed like I'm lying with the -1 related artwork that I threw on the thumbnail there, but yeah. I am instead going to be doing a couple different things because it was going to be fun to dip into a couple pieces I've had on the back burner for a while, but I had a thought to do one of my trading cards, which was going to be based on this scene, just my own interpretation of this moment where the big G gets his face whacked in by the nose end of the Orga spaceship, because I always thought that was kind of funny. But I want to make it look dynamic and kind of cool, so that's one thing we're doing. Other projects I am working on this week, in the fleeting spare hours that we do have. Making one last little clay figure for my silly little Zone Fighter shelf that I have upstairs in the Kaiju collection, but I'm going to be making Grotogaurus, the final monster that Zone fights in the final episode of the series. It's basically just a whole bunch of the Garoga villain aliens just decide to do a big old mash up together, and they turn into this big ugly bugger. So that's on my agenda as well. My next Godzilla the series figure I intend to make is going to be, I think the name was Suego, this giant scorpion thing. I don't tend to be a big fan of they're just regular blown up to giant proportion monsters, but still don't want to disregard them either, so I'm gonna throw him in the mix, just make a little minifig of this guy, because I really did like how the Cicada and the Megapede turned out, so yeah, I want to keep going with the figures from the latter half of the show, so we got that. And I don't think I'd ever shown these off, but one of these years, when my main checklist of to-dos is over, for those of you that are familiar with the Trendmasters Godzilla toy line, I always thought it would be fun to design and sculpt my own versions of some of the monsters that never got included in the line, which included Gorosaurus. And no, these are not terribly exciting or well refined, but the essence of what the Trendmasters figures were was, let's take the monster and let's just make him look a lot meaner. So I had Gorosaurus, just looking a little bit more traditional dinosaur, but with some of the key features that make Goro Goro. We had a Hedorah, which, again, not too much exciting here. I'll probably want to refine it, but I just had this idea of like his head leaning in like a big wave of sludge. For funsies, I was just like, let's just throw Minya in there. Why not? Manila, whatever you call him. In my household, it was always Minya, because the dubs. Yeah, if you know, you know. But it's hard to make him look tough, so I might have to further refine that one as well. And then I was most proud of this one, Titanosaurus. I thought that one lends itself very well to the overly muscular and BA-looking stylings that they did for those figures back in the day. So that's just a silly little thing on my to-do list one of these days. We'll get around to it. But in the meantime, let's get rolling. No, not that one. There we go. Let's get rolling with the artwork, because I want to make sure I've got enough time to get them done in decent order. Actually, oh, no, I can do without it. Never mind. I was just thinking maybe I should have my LED light shining around my desk here so I can see my references a little easier, but I'll be alright. So, I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. It is getting hot, it is getting stuffy, and that is no bueno, but as long as you're safe, as long as you're chill and cool, we will persevere, we'll maintain, everything will be hunky-dory. So let's do it to it. But no, last night I decided that things at work have been a little bit on the frustrating side, so I was just like, you know what? Screw whatever else I had planned to do. I am just going to cast everything else aside, and I'm going to watch the next movie that I had scheduled on my Toho watch list, which in my case happened to be 1983's Sayonara Jupiter. That is a fascinating movie. I'm going to guess a lot of people, even in the fandom, have not watched it, because it's not, for one, it's not super easy to find. Like, I don't think it's on any streaming service. It's not super expensive online. Like, it's not jacked up on eBay like a lot of older DVDs and older titles are. But unfortunately, it is still hard to get a hold of if you're really, unless you're really looking for it. Like, it's not one of those, oh, hey, look, it's free on YouTube, let's just watch it. It's not going to be one of those. So I understand if even a lot of Godzilla fans, especially modern, younger fans, have not seen it, because it is just hard to find. But it's a very strange film. It's an interesting novelty, because, for one thing, there's not a lot of the Toho sci-fi monster library in the 80s that ever made it over here, or oh, hey, what up, dude? Sayonara Jupiter. So, I watched it last night, and I know it's not very well seen among the fandom, among Toho fans and Godzilla fans, even though hilariously it features about a minute or two of stock footage of Ghidorah the three-headed monster, and was actually the final feature film appearance, the final appearance in anything, of legendary Toho actor Akihiko Hirata, Dr. Serizawa himself, because unfortunately he died, I think, shortly after he finished filming and before the film released, because Hirata was scheduled to actually appear in Godzilla 1984, Return to Godzilla. He was supposed to play Dr. Hayashida, but Professor Hayashida, but unfortunately he passed on, I think from cancer, like stomach cancer or something in that ballpark. So Sayonara Jupiter became his swan song, which is pretty bittersweet and kind of unfortunate, because he doesn't have a very big part, and he does not exactly go out in the most flattering manner. He dies just, to me, in sort of a kind of pitiful way, kind of sad. It's like, oh, like he had such a good career, and his character just kind of bites the dust in a really unfortunate way. So it was kind of a sad end to a very long and very cool career, because I've got him in a lot of non-kaiju feature films that I didn't even know he was going to appear in when I first got my hands on them. Like there's an Akira Takarada duology of James Bond ripoff movies, which I can't remember their Japanese names, but the English names were kind of cheesy because they were capitalizing on the James Bond stuff, and so they were like like the Golden Eyes or something like that. Just something that sounds very evocative of a Bond film. Golden Eye is a Bond film, isn't it? But you get something along those lines. And Akihiko Hirata actually showed up in the first one as an antagonist assassin. I was like, that's awesome. It's cool to see members of the Toho family just show up in things. And he was always one of my favorites to just would pop up at any random given moment. But he was in the film, and Sayonara Jupiter was a directorial piece for, what was his name? Koji Hashimoto, who was actually the director of The Return of Godzilla, Godzilla 1984. And you can kind of tell, like, there's some little visual cues, I guess, but by and large, it is just a weird anomaly in the Toho library, at least from anything I have seen, because it's very much Star Wars, Star Trek, maybe a little bit of Battlestar. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen any Battlestar Galactica. And just that interesting brand of Toho trying to do futuristic space stuff, which sometimes works and sometimes is just silly as all heck. And this one is just bizarre because on the one hand, it's still mostly family friendly, like most of the Toho library is, like any of the Godzilla films, and most of their horror and sci-fi fantasy installments are just things you wouldn't worry too much about showing your kids, for the most part. And then you got Sayonara Jupiter, which decides that the main male lead and his romantic interest are going to have a very extended zero-G lovemaking scene, and practically nothing left to the imagination. It's like, like back in the 80s when PG could also mean, here you go, here's some intensive nudity. Just different times, man. Very different times. And I wish that I could say I really liked Sayonara Jupiter, but it's never been one that has particularly grabbed me. Like, it's a little too long. It clocks in at 2 hours and 10 minutes, so it's very lengthy. But it kind of pads itself out pretty badly as well. Just a lot of those government UN conversations that happen in movies, a lot of techno-babble that characters do in a lot of space films, which, if you like the characters, it can work, but the film doesn't tend to have a great engaging cast, and some of the best characters, as mentioned, they kill off very early. So that's a bummer, because it would have been great to see Dr. Serizawa make it to the end. Unfortunately, that is not the case. But it also just has so much goofy in the film that I still kind of love it. Because there's a commune of futuristic hippies. And they have this kind of guru hippie, this Japanese guy that plays acoustic, who they worship and adore, and he's best friends with a dolphin who is also named Jupiter. And he sings songs to the dolphin and has a very uncomfortable scene of him swimming around with the dolphin. It's weird. Like the Star Trek space hippies. Honestly, it's kind of, well, I guess I can't say they're weirder than the Star Trek space hippies going off to Eden, but they're still weird. It's just, I guess a little less weird because these hippies are on Earth. Like, they're not actually in space. But then some of the hippies turn into space terrorists. It's odd. So it's an interesting novelty in the Toho library. And it is worth a look if you're a fan of 1985 and just want to see another installment of that director's work. But it's an odd one, and definitely do not watch it with kids in the room because, like I said, there's booty and boobs for days, just all over the place. But regardless of that, it was fun. The musical score is quite nice, and I do wish that Toho had produced more stuff in the 80s because I love what few films they did make in the 80s for the most part. I mean, there's something at least I love about them. Just they have a great visual appeal to them. The special effects actually look great. I think some of the 80s effects in Toho Sci-Fi actually looks a little better than what they did in some of the 90s. Because the spaceship effects in Sayonara Jupiter are actually quite strong. And it's still Kawakita. It's still the guy that did the special effects throughout the 90s and during the Heisei era. But just they didn't make very much in the 80s. And it's a bummer because I would have loved to have at least seen a couple more Godzilla films with the 80s style. And one of my all-time favorite movies, much less anime's been doing the heavy lifting for Japanese media in the 80s. That is true. 80s anime is just amazing to watch. Just the style of it, the grittiness of it. It just, to me, 80s anime feels the most like watching a comic book brought to life because of just how the visual nature of it is. Like the fact that you can just practically see the pencil lines on everything, it's very appealing. But I would have loved to have seen more 80s Toho media. And I know there is more, but I'm talking about within the genres that they became popular for in the West, like kaiju and sci-fi and fantasy stuff, because one of my all-time favorite movies, period, much less in the Toho library, is Princess from the Moon. I love that movie. The art style, one of the reasons I like Zeta Gundam so much is the art style. Yeah. No, just old school, just Ranma, the original Ranma came out of the 80s, Dragon Ball. There was a lot of Gundam didn't originate in the 80s, but it had some great looking stuff in the 80s. Project A-ko, one of my favorites. Appleseed had its first adaptation in the 80s. It was charming. I really liked that one. Maybe not as good as the modern Appleseed, but it was still good. There's so much stuff, it's hard to think of it. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen more Toho media out of the 80s, because I also love the Super Sentai and some of the tokusatsu stuff out of the 80s. Megumi Odaka's little Sukeban show that she made, where she was a high school delinquent girl beating up villainous gang members, that came out in 1988. And it's silly and it's kind of cheaply made, but it still has that 80s look. And the fashions and a lot of that stuff contribute to that as well. So I do love that style. I still remember when you recommended Project Ape to me. That movie was a bizarre experience. Yes, very true, and I appreciate you sticking through it. Like, I don't recommend it lightly because I know it's bizarre, but I just like to hope that the comedy of it, because it is actually very funny, but I don't have a ton of 80s anime in my current collection, but I still look very fondly on the stuff I have. Oh, there was one called Iria I really liked. There was a war one I remember buying called The Venus Wars. Just, lots of good stuff. Though I probably would say the majority of what I own is 90s and 2000s. Just, every era had its bangers. But just as visually speaking, I love the style of 80s anime and what they created in a lasting legacy of just that vibe, which is a very strong vibe. But the 80s was also the era of one of my favorite Super Sentai series, Bioman. I need to speed it up a little bit, I realized, or I'm not going to even get done with the Godzilla picture before end of stream time. One 80s anime that's tough to get into is Robotech. I've had people recommend me Robotech before, and Gundam, and other stuff that's got a lot of episodes and a lot of history into it, and I would love to be able to just stop the clock and go and check out all these classics, but I really can't. Oh, Voltron was another kind of classic, beautiful looking. I mean, it wasn't the most well animated thing on earth, but the style is strong. It's hard to not appreciate Voltron for its visual style. But yeah, just good stuff all around. But it's funny though, talking about older media, because I try to watch my Godzilla library and my Toho library in chronological order. Like, I just enjoy the experience of starting with the original and working my way through the 50s, through the 60s, watching the special effects change and history unfolding and seeing how it affects the films and what it means to the movies, all that stuff. Like, I enjoy that experience. So before I got to Sayonara Jupiter in the 80s, I was revisiting the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon, and man, there's something to be said, and it does also help you appreciate other things when you get to them, because going through the 1978 Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon is an experience. It helps you assess and look at later media, especially animated media, in a different light, because and don't get me wrong, I love the Hanna-Barbera show. It's charming. I grew up with a VHS tape that had exactly one episode on it, because that was all they released. That was all we had. And I watched that sucker. I very religiously watched that sucker, and I liked it. But the problem is, you go back and you rewatch some of these shows, and it's just, it becomes a little bit of a chore at some point, because it occurs to you, boy, writing has gotten so much better on later things. Like, there's balances to everything, but like the characters in the Hanna-Barbera show are as thin as paper. Like, they're decent characters. They're fun, but they just you don't know who they are. They don't have deeper emotions. They don't fight. They don't argue about anything really. Like, any conflict is very, very brief in order to just propel the plot. when it comes to live action, it's enriching to watch some of Akira Kurosawa's. Like, oh heck yeah! I'm kind of ashamed that I haven't dived deeper into the realm of Kurosawa, because like I have seen a handful of his films, but not anywhere near his library, but the entirety of his library. But no, absolutely for sure, there's just it's one of those inspiring directors, people you watch and you're like, God dang, this man knows how to tell a story. But back to Hanna-Barbera, it's just, you don't know who these people are. You got Quinn and Pete and Captain Majors and Brock, and on the one hand, I love the fact, especially in this day and age when people over obsess about and overemphasize just the nature of who the characters are. Like, oh, we got to make sure and point out their ethnicity or all these other factors constantly. It's like they didn't need to do that in the Hanna-Barbera show. They were all teammates. They were all equal. They were all smart. I mean, Pete was a dumb, annoying kid, but he's a kid. Yep, Captain Majors. Good old Captain Majors. Carl! His name was Carl. But they all worked together without any fanfare. Nobody had to make any unnecessary beef about the fact that they, we had our black guy, we had our scientific genius lady who was on board, who didn't browbeat anybody with her brains. The kid was annoying, but he was a kid. Captain Majors was just a helpful, solid guy. They all worked together. They were all great. It was just, sounds like something Hawkeye Pierce from MASH made up. Oh. I mean, that's valid. But I did like the fact that, especially in 1978, they had a very integrated cast that they didn't have to make any bones about. It's just like, yeah, they're all friends, they're all coworkers, they're all equals, and boom, there it is. So that part I liked, but they don't really have, you don't know what any of them likes. You don't know what any of them thinks about the monsters beyond just the fact that they exist, really. Their personal tastes, like what music do they like, what food do they like, just anything. It suffers from that old animation issue of just the fact that they weren't written very deep because they didn't assume that kids wanted deep, and so unfortunately it just makes it kind of a robotic, shallow, cartoony exercise after a while, where he's like, okay, I can enjoy a little bit of monster spectacle, but I'm not getting much more out of this because the characters just aren't really, they don't feel like super interesting people. They just feel like cartoon characters. That's where the 98 show shined, because like the Heat Seeker team and the Godzilla 98 cartoon, you got to see them have good story-driven conflicts, interesting debates and discussions that weren't petty real-world nonsense. They were actually, stuff about their world and the scenarios of what they had to go through, and some of them liked the monsters, some of them hated the monsters and wanted them all killed. They had differing opinions on stuff. They had petty squabbles, which they then learned how to just still be friends and respect each other like you do in life. And the writing was so good. You knew who those people were in the 98 cartoon because they were actually people. They had depth to their characters and they had interesting points to them. So that's why a lot of us who watched the 98 cartoon just loved it so much, because if the movie wasn't your cup of tea and if it didn't satisfy you as a fan of the franchise, then the show at least not only gave you great kaiju action and stuff that felt more legitimately like Toho Godzilla, but you actually had an interesting cast that you could follow and care about them as people because they actually felt real. and that was incredibly satisfying, especially since animation struggles so much to strike that balance between, okay, we're made for kids, just saying hi, but going to watch a show, might hop back in before 10. Hey, just happy to see you, my man. Thank you, Smith. I hope you enjoy your show. I will I will be wanting to try and crack out some more of mine as well, because for once I actually am watching more episodic things with Mrs. Stegman. But yeah, just anyway, little rant about the cartoons, but regardless, just because in the 90s we especially had an embarrassment of riches with some cartoons being written more intelligently. We were away from the 80s era of toy cartoons, which I'm not saying 80s cartoons sucked. Some of them did have good writing to them. 90s cartoons, we have to stay kid-friendly. Yeah, and sometimes it did work to their detriment, but usually the writing on a lot of shows was so good that it still managed to transcend the limitations placed on them by the network, because Batman TS and Gargoyle, no, for real, Gargoyles just has, I didn't get to watch all of it when I was younger, but going back and revisiting it here the last couple of years, I'm like, yeah, man, this show is good. But yeah, of course, Batman TAS, because that was essentially written for adults, but forced to be for kids. The Spider-Man cartoon from '94 was very well written, just unfortunately was very severely crippled by Fox. Just as far as the guns and the words they could use and some of the deeper character, but they still did manage to have some excellent writing and character work in spite of all that. So all credit to them on that front. But Beast Wars was a fantastic show that, yeah, the CGI has aged terribly, which everyone knew it was going to. That was just the nature of the CG animated beast. But it still overcomes its dated animation limitations, because the writing is incredible. And especially in the later seasons, you're getting character death and noble sacrifice, and just well-written and deep characters who introspect and reflect on the world that they're in and their lives and everything. It's just amazing stuff. And obviously I can't speak for everything that's being made right now because I don't watch everything. So it's entirely possible that there's some highlight stuff of this era that's particularly good. And I acknowledge that may exist, and it may be family friendly, but I just don't know what it is. And I haven't really heard anybody rave about a lot of stuff lately, unless it's not sure. I actually think Beast Wars animation still kind of holds up, but that's just me. I mean, it's not bad animation. It's made well, it's animated well. It's just obviously sort of superficial things like textures and shading and certain model work and stuff like that that's inevitably just going to look aged, because no matter what, CG animation always ages. It always looks like it. My brain tells me when I think about it that the original Toy Story still looks like $1 million, but then I go back and I look at it and I was like, okay, it still looks great, but you can tell that it's aged. Just, again, no shade. It's amazing work. It's still animated fantastically, but inevitably, it has aged. And that's okay. That's part of what I am not... I like media that represents its time and is a time capsule of itself and the era that it was born in. And yeah, sometimes that diminishes the experience a little bit for newer audiences, or when you go back and watch and it's like, ooh, maybe this didn't hold up as well as my brain told me it did through rose-colored glasses, but it's still nice to just see it the way it is. And obviously that's why I love my Toho media so much, because yeah, the Human Vapor and the H-Man and Son of Godzilla and older movies in the Toho library don't look as stunning as they once did, or not, well, stunning, whatever. They don't look like they would have to an audience back then, and they may not look anything other than cheesy to a modern audience, but the inherent charm and the fun of seeing how things progress and develop for me is just part of what I like so much about the experience of older media. It's like, hey, look how far we've come, but look at the building blocks that got us here. It's awesome, and I enjoy it. Speaking of the Human Vapor, though, I saw the trailer for the new Human Vapor adaptation that's being released to Netflix. I think they said July 2nd, and my gosh, they are definitely taking advantage of their platform of being on Netflix and being able to get away with an M rating, because there was some pretty intense violence just in the trailer itself, like far more than was ever desired or possible in the 1960 Human Vapor film. And I've said it many times before, and I will always say it, Human Vapor is one of my all-time favorite Toho movies. Toshio Yuchiya is awesome in that film. The special effects are cool. The story is neat. Like, even if it is a little derivative of kind of like Phantom of the Opera, Beauty and the Beast kind of a thing, it's still perfectly unique in and of itself and extremely watchable no matter how old it gets. And I love it a lot. And it's just, usually I'll be the one who's just like, why remake? We don't need this. But in this case, it's not a Japanese classic being remade by some American studio and casting a bunch of Americans and mixed North American race people into the film. It's a Japanese and I think Korean collaborative remake that they are putting together, and it looks intense and it looks very interesting. They're going a very different direction with the story already. You can tell from the trailer, because it's going to be an episodic thing rather than a movie. It's actually like a short series. But just from the trailer already, you can see how they're playing with the concept, and they're making the Human Vapor more overtly dangerous than he even was in the original movie. And yeah, for once, I am cautiously optimistic and curious to just see what they do with it, and I hope that they do a good job. But I'm always cautious about remakes, because a lot of the times it ends up just boiling down to, well, that was a waste of time. Evening boss, Mrs. Boss, how's the weather over there? Happy to say that it's holding at a slightly better level than what we had to deal with earlier today. And the house didn't get flooded and float away, so that's always a positive. Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to the Human Vapor. I'm 2 episodes out from being done with Spider Noir, and honestly, it's the most fun I've had with a superhero feature in a good minute. It's just fun. They do the noir stuff very authentically and very fun. I mean, for the most part. There's stuff that's incongruous to the time period and is a little bit more modern humor than I think fits, but very just tiny nitpicks overall. Like, I can't complain about the show, because it's just actually enjoyable and not meant for little youngins, certainly. Like, don't show your 10-year-old son, I don't think, certain parts of this show, but yeah, for the older Spider-Man fans, for the teenage or slightly older Spider-Man fans that just really like the multiversal stuff and can't get enough of Nick Cage being a complete goofball, I just say enjoy, because we're only 2 episodes from the end and I've completely enjoyed it so far. I do like E very much. So we got that going on. We are actually watching on Saturdays when we get together with my best friend. We've been watching a Korean show called Fiery Priest. It's a little older, but it's just one we saw, and we're like, okay, this looks potentially hilarious. And it's about a Korean Catholic priest who goes around beating the tar out of bad guys because he's got an anger control problem and he's ex-military. So when gangsters and hood types start embezzling around town and causing bad things to happen, the priest goes into detective mode and starts whooping the butt with his martial arts skills while still wearing the collar. So it's actually been really funny. We've been enjoying it a lot. My buddy and I have also been engaging in a little bit of nostalgia because as a youngin', I didn't get to fully watch a lot of the shows that I wanted to, so what you do as a silly, nerdy adult is to backtrack, so we've actually been watching Darkwing Duck, and I like it a lot, because I love Jim Cummings. He's one of the greatest voice actors who will ever live, and yeah, just 90s, late 80s, early 90s, Disney afternoon just hits different, man. They did great with those shows. Chippendale Rescue Rangers is an all-time favorite. Darkwing is just cheesy cornball enjoyability. It's good stuff. We've been having a lot of fun with it. My friend and I also recently finished a Japanese comedy called The Man Who Could Not Marry. Who the show stars Hiroshi Abe of, well, for the Godzilla fans watching, he's actually in the very movie that I'm basing the picture on right now. He was in Godzilla 2000, but he's been in a ton of movies, like Thermae Romai and Orochi the Eight-Headed Dragon, and tons of movies in Japanese TV. Like, he is prolific. Like, I've ended up watching movies of his without even intending to, because it's just like, oh, he's in this too. I guess as a joke you could say he's like the Japanese Pedro Pascal. You can't swing a dead cat without running into a Hiroshi Abe movie sooner or later. So, but it was a fun show. It was just The Man Who Couldn't Marry. It was basically just what would it be like for a guy who's so up his own rear end, but he doesn't realize kind of how insufferable he is, and every time he thinks he's getting close to a woman, he just keeps sabotaging it because he's just such a dick. And it just actually is really funny. And that show is actually on Amazon Prime, subtitled, so it is easily available to watch. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with it, and I just like the branching effect that watching kaiju movies has in my life. And what I mean by that is, like, you watch a movie, you see somebody you enjoy, and then you look them up maybe on IMDb or somewhere on the internet, and you're like, oh, sounds like Mordecai from Regular Show. I will have to take your greater knowledge on that one. I have never seen the Regular Show, but yeah, if he's sort of a extremely not self-aware person who ends up pissing people off without thinking that he's being a pain, then yes, that would fit. Because Abe is so good at being a likable, antagonistic piece of crap. See, that's kind of what he was in Godzilla 2000. Like, even though he was some dickhead military government contractor guy, he was still charming. He was still likable, but he was still basically the bad guy, sort of. I mean, the antagonistic force. In The Man Who Couldn't Marry, he doesn't know he's a douche. Like, by and large, he doesn't think that he's an asshat, but it's just inevitably what he always is because he just can't get out of his own way. He just can't shut up long enough to realize that he's pissing people off. I realized, man, this is a good show to show people, or to maybe reflect on yourself if you're ever having those moments where you're like, oh man, what did I do? And then you watch a couple episodes of this and you're like, and now I get it. But yeah. No, it was a good show, and I was sorry to see it end, but there were only 2 seasons, and as it stands, there are not any further. Probably won't be, because Mr. Abe is gonna... We know a few of those at work. I'm not naming names, because somehow this will get back to the company, and I'll be on the unemployment line, so... Dip zippity doo dah, zippity a. My oh my, what a wonderful day. Yeah. Oh, one moment. Wrist is actually a little out of practice, believe it or not. I got a little side project I intend to finish hopefully before the next stream, but I want to change the intro out, the little starting soon screen. I got this idea to make a little animation, just little simple animation, not like my model here, but just something hand drawn, just something fun. So, try and get that done as well. But doodly doodly doo. But now, it's so funny. Like when you're a nerd and you have a particular nerdy subgenre that you really, really love more than others, you realize that your family is either going to be on board and they might enjoy it with you because, sometimes family is like, I'll give this a try, or they ostracize you and just like, why do you like this crap? But I've always been very blessed and very fortunate that primarily my dad, like my brother and I have always shared the same interests. It's pretty common for siblings to have interests in common and whatever. But when I was growing up, my dad had kind of his tastes, and for a while I kind of had my tastes. And just, we did enjoy some things together. He'd watch old Doctor Who episodes or Star Trek or whatnot, and that'd be family time. We'd watch those together. But then I got older, and I was just like, I want to introduce him to some of the stuff I like. And before I poisoned him, I guess, if you want to call it, he never had really a lot of exposure to Japanese media in general, outside of just whatever kaiju films I happened to be watching growing up. But I got him into a few anime. Like, some became family favorites that he very much enjoyed. One of the top ones being Azumanga Daioh. But that was part of the reason why he knew that we would all love to go to Japan. And just, he's like, yeah, I got a friend in Japan I can visit, and, you boys clearly love Japanese stuff and Japanese culture, so let's go enjoy it together and all that fun. Well, the thing is, my dad was not really prepared for Japan. Like, he knew the country was weird, in good ways. He knew that the country was odd, but he wasn't fully prepared for what it would mean to walk the streets, to go into Japanese businesses, certain customs that you had to follow. And to be fair, neither was I. I was a little bit cringe when I went as well. But the reason I bring it up, it's such a good story. I feel for him. I know it's embarrassing, but my dad, people, if they met him, might lump him into the category of being a bit of a prude. I think they would just assume that he's very much guarded and safeguarded more than the average American man. But He's a gentle soul, and he was also once a man of the cloth, so he has his reasons, but just he was not fully prepared for what it would mean walking around, in this case, Akihabara. We went to Akihabara towards the end of our trip in Japan, and I will never forget, as long as I live, that we went into a toy store. And we're just looking around. Me and my brother were looking around, and of course I was gravitating towards anything kaiju that I could find. I remember from that particular store, I found a little Yuji Sakai model kit. Not model kit, but a little diorama, mini diorama of Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Gigan, where his head is all bloodied up, and in the diorama he's standing around Children's Land with the little mushroom buildings and the other little structures, and I was like, oh, this is cool, I want this. But we're going around the store, and poor Papa Stegman finds out about anime girl figures. Basically, they had a whole bunch of big vinyl PVC statuettes of some of the Evangelion girls, probably Sailor Moon, some other characters of popular sort. And they were quite big, quite detailed, quite nude, and they only had little bits of tape covering their naughty bits, and I do mean little pieces of tape. And I looked at his face, and he was trying desperately to avert his gaze and just not look at the plastic art, as it were. And I could tell he was trying to not overreact, especially in front of the Japanese, but I knew he didn't want to just have me wandering around looking at the plastic cast flesh of some of these anime girls. But he couldn't get away from it, because every corner of the store that we turned, there was another waifu with her bits and pieces out. So he was quickly losing the fight. Sailor Moon is cute, but not cute enough to risk jail time. Well, she's cute enough for certain Japanese gentlemen to buy her very adult figures, I guess. But yeah, it was funny, but at the same time I did feel kind of bad for him, because I could tell he was very uncomfortable and just kind of wanted out of there. But we were, my brother and I were still we're looking through the Godzilla figures and the kaiju stuff, and they had some good Gamera figures as well, I remember at the time. And unfortunately, there just wasn't really anything that could be done. They were just kind of everywhere. So my poor father, kind of the same. I'm pretty sure I told the story, but it was the same thing with the hotel. If I've already told that story, just tell me and I won't. But there was a very funny event that happened at the hotel that we stayed at in Tokyo. I'll wait off on that one just in case people don't know what I'm talking about. But just the poor man had a lot of culture shock, just realizing that in Japan it is not so uncommon to come across more adult material and whatever. I mean, he kind of knew that because of the media we watched, because we're watching anime and certain movies where it's like, oh, okay, there's just casual nudity and other things that would just happen. So he knew it existed, but I don't think he was truly prepared for just how common and easy it is in Japan to just sort of come across more mature and more adult-oriented things. Like, they definitely have material in what we would generalize as children's programming or family programming that's a little bit more adultish than what we in the West would tolerate. The casual accessibility. Yeah, I mean, it's not a myth that they have vending machines with certain articles of feminine clothing and other such stuff. And they know it's not a myth. So, but it was funny. We walked by a park at one point that had a statue of a bunch of dudes that were a bunch of naked dudes, and I remember him being a little off-put by that as well, especially because me and my friend, who our friend was acting as our tour guide, and I just remember we were kind of joking with each other, just like, the statues aren't cut. My dad was a little like, must we talk about the statues? Bless his heart. Bless his heart. Just my dear old pops. Just little stuffy. Little old school. Little stuffy, but it's okay. I love him. But yeah, just the casual nudity of action figures was the absolute last thing on his travel bingo card. I'm gonna drink real quick. I'm afraid that my natural asthmatic state makes me a little bit overly dry in the throat, a lot quicker than I would like to be. So anyway, yeah, we have Godzilla bonk. We have him getting bonked by the nose end of a UFO. And other than a few more lines, I think we're basically done with the line art on this one. I don't want to belabor it forever, but I think that'll about do. And move on to the second piece of the evening, because I don't want to just focus on the kaiju. I don't want to just be pigeonholed. I got more fandoms. You know, it's a big part of what I want the channel to be, but, you know, I got other interests I want to dip into there a little bit. So, we should do that. And I'm going to do that. We're going to have a variety show here, dang it. We're going to be like the Muppet Show, except without casual penguins exploding and highly paid guest stars. So far, I've not technically had a guest star. That would be cool. I'd be up for collabs. If there's any other kaiju streamers out there that would be up for doing a little bit of a yap and art collab or anything of that variety, please hit me up. I'm desperate. Please. Alright, let's save this. Ba-boom. Alright. We have the line art for our next card. Woot. And I do need to get those other ones finished that I showed off last time, but we will... Oh! I was just reminding myself, my poor dad's embarrassment. Get your wife to collab. I mean, that is possible. I just don't know if she would be too shy and embarrassed to stream with me, or if it's a whatever. I think she might enjoy collabing on Subnautica, which I think I'll make that the stream for tomorrow or Friday, because I do want to make a little bit more progress, but I guess it'll just depend on whether or not she feels she could do so without being all bashful about it. But no, I was going to mention on the topic of my poor father's casual embarrassment, that the poor man has spent a great deal of his life, let's just say, struggling with how do I put this tactfully? Just being a guy with a strict moral code, who doesn't like things of an adult fare, or particularly suggestive things, or, you know, violent or gross things. He's pretty old school. He's pretty vanilla. But unintentionally, we have ended up watching some hilariously not so child-friendly stuff. And it's no fault of his own, because again, if you were present or if you happen to enjoy a great deal of 1980s media or older media, you will find that a lot of times they will lie to you. What has been like, we are past the age now of the PG rating being, because like bear in mind the PG rating was new in the 1980s and largely came about because of stuff like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, because they're like, okay, or the PG-13 rating, my bad, because the PG-13 rating was invented largely because of the Temple of Doom, because they were like, okay, we've got stuff in these PG films that people are not happy with, and we need to curb-tail exactly who is seeing some of this stuff. So the Temple of Doom comes out, it's PG, parents are not happy, and they end up inventing the PG-13. But regardless of that, there was still stuff in the 80s, I want to say even after the PG-13 rating came out, that managed to get itself into the ballpark of a PG rating, even though arguably it did not belong in the PG rating. And because, yeah, like, in spite of some language and some suggestive material, the original Star Trek the Motion Picture is PG, and it's not a hardcore movie or anything, but I remember one time my dad was like, okay, we need some culture. I want you to watch some culture, some literature, some famous literature. And we found a VHS tape. Again, you know, I'm a dinosaur. We found a VHS tape of an 80s version of Mutiny on the Bounty, starring Anthony Hopkins and Mel Gibson. Yeah, Wrath of Khan was PG. It had a few intense-ish moments, but I would say it was pretty safe. But at least for reasonable audiences. But we ended up watching this version of Mutiny on the Bounty, just called The Bounty, and it was PG. And my dad was just like, oh, okay, this will be some culture. This is a famous novel, and it's a remake of a classic. Let's watch this. What my poor father did not understand was that because it was the 80s and because things were a little different, the movie featured an entire island of native women topless. And some of them were very cute. So you got this PG movie, and he's showing his young son, Amadeus. Okay, that is true. Amadeus was a little hardcore for a PG, at least some of the earlier scenes. But later they came out with an R-rated cut, and that's the one that I own. And they get a lot more explicit on some of the nudity. But yeah, they were just native island girls bouncing everywhere. And my poor father is just sitting there, his fingers gripping into the arm of his seat, his teeth gnashing, thinking to himself, shoot, I recommended this. I told my son we should watch this together. And now I've just inadvertently exposed him to an army of attractive women. So, needless to say, that was not one of his favorite days, but to his credit, he didn't yank it out of the tape player. He let it go, but I might have been a little distracted at that point. I don't remember a lot of what happened towards the middle and end of the film. But, yeah, just there was that. Another one I remember because it kind of took him by shock, and this was one that he was very excited to watch. Because one of his favorite movies of all time is Chariots of Fire. And that is an amazing movie. Like, I recommend that to anybody. But he found out that the director of Chariots of Fire directed a movie about Tarzan called Tarzan the Legend of Greystoke. And it was, the idea behind it was that it was supposed to be a more realistic and grounded version of Tarzan. So none of the apes talked. Like, they communicated with Tarzan, but they didn't speak English. And instead of performing inhuman feats of acrobatics in the trees. Tarzan did more normal human things. Like they were basically just making it to be the realistic and grounded take on Tarzan. However, that meant that they made some choices which, while probably much more realistic, created a very awkward moment in the movie as my father and I were watching it, because the gorillas still find baby Tarzan. And he's just a wee little lad in a crib, and his parents are dead, and the gorillas, of course, being animals, I don't know, they don't understand that this little human child is going to be needing diapers and all that stuff. So for a good portion of the beginning of the movie, little baby Tarzan from his preschool years up until his adolescence is just running around naked on camera, just totally in his birthday suit. And at one point, he strikes a pose in front of the camera, and you're just basically looking right up his derriere. And I could tell my dad was like, oh my, oh goodness, why? And I'm like, well, it is realistic, I guess. Some kid out in the middle of the jungle isn't going to be concerned, being raised by gorillas, isn't going to be concerned about his modesty. We are concerned about his modesty, and I'm sure everybody who finds the movie and watches it and doesn't know that scene is coming is extremely concerned about his modesty. But the people who made the movie back in the 80s, not so much. Pretty much. Yeah, that was an experience for sure. And the rest of the film is pretty clean, and it doesn't have any adult nudity or anything too hard. But yeah, that opening bit, and any movie where you find out that they just casually had youngin nudity, it really hits you just like, oh no, oh why? And you're just like, well, somebody thought this was either artistic, somebody was in the Epstein files, or they just felt that, that it is the demands of this story. We must have it in there, or else it is not true to the vision. Something like that. Like whatever excuse they come up with, I guess. But yeah, my poor dad, just a lot of the time, he just could not win, and I felt bad for him. But on the other hand, it gave me some wonderful stories to share, so you're welcome. My dad's suffering makes for excellent material to yap about. And to his credit, even though he doesn't like it when I bring these stories up, I did catch him smirking the last time I brought up the Japanese hotel incident, which if you don't know that story, and forgive me if you've already heard this one, I'm hoping there's at least somebody here who is unfamiliar with it, so I'm not just retreading old territory, but it is one of my favorite stories about him, because it's like, bless his heart, he tried so hard to be a good parent, but sometimes life just said, no, you are not allowed to be overprotective. So when we were in the Tokyo hotel, it just happened that he and my brother had a room, and I had a room of my own. Like, for some reason, it didn't work out that we could all share the same room. So I had my own space, and I was like, alright, cool, whatever. I can just chill all night and watch movies and do whatever. So I turned on the television in this nice little compact Japanese motel room. And the very first thing that my eyes were met with were two human beings engaged in the thing that creates other human beings. And I jumped out of my seat, and after a few seconds, the screen went blue, and a little message appeared on it that said, in Japanese and English, if you would like more of this, please head down to the lobby and purchase some sort of a card so that you could watch that particular channel on the hotel station, basically. And I was like, huh, well, that was a surprising flashbang that I did not expect to happen. Alrighty. So I'm flipping around other channels and seeing much more normal material when my phone goes off, and it's my dad. And I'm like, okay, what's he calling about? I'm like, hello? And he just yells, "Ran!" I'm like, what's the matter? Don't turn on the TV! I'm like, oh no. I am trying so hard not to laugh my ass off, and I feign ignorance, and I'm just like, oh, what's the matter, Dad? What's the matter? And he just yelled, porn! Just yelled the word like he was charging up for a Super Saiyan attack. I was like, well, poor Dad found out the hard way. And again, that's not exactly something that is a common experience to my knowledge in Western establishments. You don't just go into a hotel room, turn on the TV, and immediately get bombarded with the horizontal mambo. So my poor dad, just, I feel for him, but I was also just smiling to myself, being like, huh, I mean, he's freaking out, and I'm just over here being like, well, that was an experience. But he very much did enjoy the trip, and it didn't put him off of Japan. I mean, he does hope to go back someday before the end, but yeah. Just that poor sweet boy. So, but I am a firm believer, though, that what you would consider to be your top favorite movies do kind of say a lot about you as a person. And I'm not saying that in a sort of like, judge this person, he's got terrible taste, or like, I might question some of your tastes. Like, if somebody comes up to me and says that the only movies they really love are the Saw franchise, I might be like, okay, that's a choice. I don't think that's one I would. Excuse me a second. I wouldn't necessarily deem that to be the best option for saying this is your favorite movie franchise of all time. But hey, I guess it's got to be somebody's. But I've just always kind of held that your favorite movies do say a lot about you, which is why I realized, looking over my own favorites, because I did make a list once. I engaged in some pure autism at one point. It was just like, I'm going to make a top 20 favorite movies list. No offense. I have no idea what my mental status is on that regard, but I was just like, you know what, making a top 20 favorite movie list might be a little bit tism, but it's okay. It's also served me well, because I have been asked more than once by people like, what are your favorite movies, or what would you recommend? So it has saved me on occasion as well, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of silly, I suppose, but just I did make a list, and it's pretty eclectic, or at least reasonably eclectic, I guess. I feel like it says a lot about me, but my number 20th pick was Bugsy Malone. If you don't know what Bugsy Malone is, probably for the best, because it's kind of weird, but it's literally a gangster movie that features no adults. They're all supposed to be adult characters, but the cast is completely made up of children. And they don't shoot themselves with bullets. They hit each other with pies. If someone said to me that Saw is their top favorite movie ever, I'd be like, are you a prison record waiting to be written? Yeah. I knew somebody at an old job who was extremely fond, I would say more than what would be deemed healthy, fond of the Saw franchise, and they weren't exactly somebody I was comfortable being around, but, again, I don't want to be accused of being overly judgmental, but I was just like, you know, maybe I have too much empathy. Maybe I'm just not somebody who can sit through these and be like, I sure like this movie. I have too much empathy pain. I get too squicked out by torture movies. Heck, I get too squicked out by a lot of horror films if they do the wrong thing, like having a bug crawl under somebody's skin or something that's equally just like, no. So, you know, I'm clearly not the target demographic, but whatever. But no, Bugsy Malone was my number 20, and probably primarily because I love Paul Williams and I love his music, and he did write the soundtrack and the score. Princess from the Moon, the Toho Studios Princess from the Moon / Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. I adore that movie. Probably more than it deserves, to be honest, but I just love that movie. Stars the late, great Toshiro Mifune, staple of the Kurosawa and samurai films of classic Japan. The anime version of Metropolis, I love that movie. It is a brilliant artistic masterpiece. Porco Rosso from Studio Ghibli, Enemy Mine. I love Enemy Mine, man. That movie is just I was going to say something. That movie is the chest of a woman. That movie is the best. It is just such a strong drama, and I know that the author wasn't a big fan of it. I read his book. I read his foreword where he's just like, I hate the fact that so many people love that movie, but I can't help it that it's popular because that's just how a lot of people are going to find out about it. But I love Enemy Mine, man. Little known, kind of, it falls firmly into the category of chick flick, but I don't care because it's actually quite good. But there was a movie called Miss Potter, which was a biopic about the life of Beatrix Potter, the woman who wrote the books about the rabbits. Great movie. Has Ewan McGregor in it as her love interest, and Renee Zellweger as Miss Potter. Just wonderful film, especially if you're an artist and a writer. It's inspiring, and it's sweet, and a little bit sad, but still very, very sweet. Pacific Rim. I don't care if that's a basic answer on a favorite movies list. I love Pacific Rim, man. That movie makes me feel things. Anyway, I shouldn't go on forever about my favorite movies, but just because a lot of my top 10 are actually much older films, like Harvey and Goodbye Mr. Chips and It's a Wonderful Life, mixed in with, and Some Like It Hot, mixed in with stuff like Goofy Movie and the Lord of the Rings trilogy and whatever. But just I have a sort of eclectic list, and I like to hope that says to people that I'm not just completely stuck in a rut. Like, I know I'm primarily on the internet known for my love of kaiju, and have absolutely no doubt, kaiju is my favorite genre and my favorite thing in entertainment and fiction overall, and Godzilla is my favorite fictional franchise, beyond any doubt. But, you know, it's nice. Variety is the spice of life, and it's nice to have options for things and to dip into other flavors and other pools. So, yeah. So, in the event you're curious what exactly we're doing here, I wanted to do a Ninja Turtle piece. Oh, that arm needs a little work now that I'm looking at it. I wanted to do a turtle piece, but I didn't want it to just be something basic already from the movies. I saw that they actually did announce that the last Ronin video game is still happening, which surprised me. I thought they had actually canceled that, or it was just stuck in development hell because they announced it quite a while ago. So it's cool to see that The Last Ronin is still happening. I hope it's a good game. But no, my brain just did a woozy. I decided to take an old, unreleased action figure of Raphael called the Shadow Ninja Raph, and I thought it would be kind of cool to make a little piece around it and do some old school turtles like the Mirage era when they were allowed to be particularly violent. Because yeah, back in the day the Turtle Boys were pretty far out there. Like, original issue of the first Turtles comic, they were killing suckers left and right, and I don't mean robotic foot soldiers. They were killing humans and did not bat an eye. And I know we're never going to see that represented on film because Paramount and Nickelodeon are going to be far too protective of the IP to ever allow anything more violent than the Batman Ninja Turtles movie crossover to probably ever be a thing. But, you know, there is still part of me that would just enjoy seeing it. Thought it would still be kind of cool. So brother's got to do for himself, you know? And that is what I'm going to do. Make a little piece. Make it a little bit extra old school Mirage Turtles violent, and just have a little fun, a little what if. Yeah. And this is pretty much what the toy looks like. Oh! Need a quick stretch there. But I am reinvigorated in my excitement for G-Fest, just due to the fact that they did get Miss Kobayashi in. Not sure what I want her to sign, because that's always the question when you meet somebody you like in a film. What do you sign? But still probably not going to hit up the Pickwick Theater. I always look forward to hitting up the dealer's room, though. The dealer's room is always fun. It's always a little nuts. But I do have a small wish list. Like, I would say this year is probably the smallest the wish list has ever been. Which is good, because you need to know when to pace yourself and call it quits when you're a collector, or when to scale back things. And I know one of the things I would very much enjoy having is the Memorial Box Rodan 1993. And the reason I decided I'd enjoy having that one is because it's actually Rodan in brown, which they don't hardly ever release figures of that particular Rodan in brown. It's always red because Fire Rodan. I was like, you know what? I want the Memorial Box one. Hopefully somebody there will have the Memorial Box, because that would be fun. That would be cool. Otherwise, honestly, I don't worry too much about doing the collecting side of the fandom when I go to the dealer's room anymore. I just like, you know what? If I can find something unique and kind of cool and fun, that would be awesome too. Like, some years I've gone and picked up lobby cards, original 1950s and 60s movie lobby cards, and bought them, took them home, put them behind protective frames, because I just think they're cool and they're a piece of history and they should be preserved. So I have bought those before. Random stuff, like Japan has this thing they'll do where you can go to theaters and buy program books and little special, just kind of special books about the movie you're going to watch. And I found one last year for Orochi the Eight-Headed Dragon, aka aka Yamata Takeru, which I thought was awesome. And since that is my cosplay for this year, it just felt, and I knew at the time it was going to be my cosplay as well, so I was like, perfect. Now I can take this book, and it'll have some really nice photography of the costume and other stuff from the movie in here, and it'll assist me in my efforts, and it absolutely did. Speaking of the costume as well, anybody who's ever cosplayed knows a very simple truth, that cosplay is never easy, because no matter what, an issue always arises. So I was trying to put on the midsection last night, trying to give it a little test drive, see if I could get it on and off with ease, and I discovered to my absolute annoyance that the midsection was just too tight. There was too much foam on the inside, so I had to get in there and rip all that out. I'm like, man, I spent so much time piecing this all together, but that's the point. You never know until you finally put it on for realsies and see how it wears and where its strengths are and whether or not you're going to be able to survive the process, because more often than not they're a lot heavier or more uncomfortable than you expect. Sometimes it's a little tricky to breathe depending on what kind of costume you're in as well. But it's basically done. It's basically assembled. I got the backpack on last night, so I'm pretty excited about that. Just got to give it a proper test drive. But it is fun to snoop around in the dealer's room, because you never know what you're going to find. Like, no matter what, there's always going to be a surprise. And last year, one of the funnier surprises I came across was a table that was selling very old action figures of the Thunderbirds that show about the puppets that fly spacecraft or whatever the heck they are. I was like, alright, that's different. I wouldn't have expected anyone to bother bringing that to G-Fest, but hey, it paid off because I was able to purchase it and send it to my buddy who lives in the UK, because he absolutely loves Thunderbirds. But I enjoy the random stuff. Excuse me. I enjoy the random stuff and the I had no idea this existed stuff sometimes just as much as I do my actual wish list items. Because it's kind of what makes it a little bit of a treasure hunt, you know? Only major problem is just sifting through the avalanche of human bodies. Especially in my situation, you know, I don't want people stepping on my tail, don't want people being rude. But it's just hard to deal with a shopping room at a convention sometimes, because for a lot of people, I know for a fact that is their primary objective. That is the thing that they love doing the most at a con, is just going to the dealer's room and finding merch. They don't care about the celebrities, they don't care about the Q&A panels, they don't care about anything but getting their stuff. And that's fine. I like my stuff. But I also like to meet people, whether it's the celebrities or new mega fans who just have a really, really passionate love of the franchise and the genre that you're a fan of, and hit up stuff and You got fans to talk to about all those obscure little useless points of trivia that you never knew you needed until that very moment. I am not doing well on this side for some reason. It's a little wonky doodle. Why is it wonky doodle? Because the middle prong isn't quite straight. That's why it's wonky doodle. So I need to fix. Repair! Repair! Repairing Will Robinson. I do find it incredibly difficult to do straight lines on a tablet, and I don't like cheating by using rulers if I can absolutely help it. Sometimes I do have to use them. That's good enough. Spent too much time on the side. But, what was I saying? I'm hopeless. I'm absolutely hopeless. But regardless, I like the dealer's room a lot. I like treasure hunting. I do have to teach myself sometimes that you don't need every kaiju related thing you see. That's why I do not own the Godzilla toilet roll dispenser that exists out there in this world. Yeah, for real. For real. And there's lots of other merch that's just out there in the ether, but I don't need it just because it exists. I want it because it's meaningful or it's fun. Or it's just something that's in need of being checked off the bucket list. Like a particular character I don't have in 3 dimensions. That's all. Alright. Raph is coming along. And it's funny to say, but I think upon reflection the last few years, I've kind of realized that as much as I do love Batman and DC in general and whatnot, honestly, I think my number 2 favorite fandom behind Kaiju at number 1 at this point really is just Ninja Turtles. Like, Batman used to be my definitive number 2 after Godzilla. And I still love Batman, but honestly, I just feel like the Ninja Turtles have increasingly crept up in my affections over the years, and they just kind of claim the number 2 spot a little bit, I think. Oh no. He likes one show slightly more than the other, or one franchise slightly more than the other. What will he do? It's not a big deal. And maybe I like them evenly at the end of the day. But lately, just a lot more turtle media. Just really felt it. But our boy is coming along. I'm not sure I like that crouch. No, I don't like that crouch. No, that ain't working. That is not. Sorry. Just sometimes you have to pull back a little bit and realize that it is not working. It's a hard spot to get to when you're a writer or an artist. I think when you just want to keep moving forward and making progress, but then you look at what you've done, you're like, ugh. Nope. I know it seems like horrendous backtracking, but gotta do it right or not at all. And that's an important thing to me. I promised myself I wasn't going to go on any rants, and I promise this won't turn into more than a very short statement. But I was seeing more opinion today online from people talking about AI artwork in ways that I do not agree with. And something that just kind of occurs to me is that even though you can have an AI generated image that doesn't work, it's kind of a failure, and so you cast it aside and you make another one or whatever you do and all that. Even though it allows you the option to recreate the same scenario limitlessly as many times as you want, the experience with hand-drawn art and having to fix your mistakes and having the option to fix your mistakes is a very key part of the artistic learning process. Something like I said, autistic learning process. But yeah, the artistic learning process is, to a large degree, your mistakes. And not having the benefit of a program just being able to go, oh, you didn't like that one? Here, let me instantaneously pump out another option for you to choose from because you didn't like that one. It's not the same. And yeah, I know to a degree it feels like cheating a little bit to have the digital option for erasing and doing over stuff and whatnot. But I at least will give that enough of a pass to be like, well, you're still erasing it yourself and re-attempting it yourself at whatever you felt you failed at, that, you know, they will lead you to believe AI does better and creates art. But, again, I may not be the greatest artist in the world. I know I'm not the greatest artist. There's no may about it. Definitively, I should say. I am aware of the fact that I am not the greatest artist in the world. But what I can at least say is that if you stick me in a room with somebody who has never done anything but generate AI art in their life and give us 2 sketchbooks and say, all right, you have been denied technology, go for it. I'm going to be able to happily sit there and create something with my own effort, with human effort, rather than just sit there and be powerless because I don't have some generative software to use to create an image. Not an artistic image, but to create an image. It is an image, I can't deny that, but it's not art. And I know I'm a broken record on this point, and I apologize if it's potentially starting to drive anybody nuts, but it's the hill that I will be expiring upon, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Like, I'm serious. If I were to lose my right hand, and as you can clearly see, based on what you are witnessing before you, I am a right-handed stegosaur. I am not an ambidextrous dinosaur. I am a right-handed dinosaur. And once in a while I've had the thought, I was like, what am I going to do if somebody chops off my hand? Or some freak luck thing happens and I unfortunately get the short end of the stick and I will never be able to draw the way I used to again. I'll even if I train my left hand to do what I did before, the imagery will be forever changed. Like, what do? You just say screw it, and you just go the cheap route anyway? Or do you maintain the integrity and keep, like, switch hands and create? Or do you hire somebody else to do the project for you because you don't have the means anymore, you know? And I was like, my first choice, my first option is absolutely going to be to try and retrain myself, because years ago now I damaged a nerve in my finger, and I can still feel it and it still hurts, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. So in that damaged finger on my right hand, I can still function, and I can still draw, and I can still do stuff, but it does get very difficult sometimes, especially, like, I mean, I can feel it right now. I can feel the strain on my index finger because of the damage it took back in 2020 of all years. But needless to say, I just prefer to do it the right way. And if you put me in a room like in the movie Big Eyes, where you're with somebody who claims that they're an artist, and you put a sketch pad in front of them and in front of you, and you both get 30 minutes to draw an image, it's still going to be the artist at the end of the day, the actual artist at the end of the day, that'll be able to create without the aid of electronics, of software. Like, give me pen and paper and a pencil, mechanical pencil preferably, and we can still create something. And I'm very proud of that fact. If the great EMP burst that the conspiracy people occasionally say is going to happen someday because Russia is going to go nuts or something happens in the real world, and they send out a gigantic EMP burst that wipes out all technology on the planet, and we've been sent back to the Stone Age, and we have to use pen and paper and pencil again. Yo, bruh, I'm set. I'm good. I won't be able to scan any of it into my computer until they would potentially repair and build new computers. But, you know, I'll still be able to draw it. Mwahaha. Don't mind me, I'm channeling my inner Skeletor. Nyahaha! I can still draw, He-Man! Just because the electricity is out! Nyahaha! I apologize. So yes, we have a dead foot soldier here in a pile of foot soldiers. It's a little gruesome, I suppose. It's not going to be on Nickelodeon anytime soon, but hey, I figured it would help the image stand out. Oh dear. Alright. Do the ropes. So, something I tell artists, or I try to encourage artists in when they work, it's something that it was a line, I guess. If I want to frame it in a way that would make it easier to remember, there was a moment in the movie Finding Forrester. It was a Sean Connery film from, I think, 2000 or 2001, and he's a writer, he's an author, and he's training up a young kid to be a writer after him. And one of the more interesting pieces of advice he gives in the film is when he tells the kid, the first draft of what you do when you first get into it and are going at it, you need to do with your heart. Don't stop, don't think, just write. And second draft, you can slow down and you can do it with your brain. I struggle with that because I always want my stuff to be idealized and realized first on the first wave. So unfortunately that's still something that I fight against, and that's why we are almost to 9 o'clock and I am still working, you know. I mean, I got the Godzilla picture line art done, but we've been working on Foot Soldier and Raphael here for the better part of an hour, and the main thing I was just trying to say with this is that don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every artist, good or bad, quality or garbo, has to get to that point where they're not afraid to make some mistakes and just try over. Try a spot over, refine something you need to refine, and before you know it, you'll be much happier that you didn't abandon it. Because I don't remember who it was, but some famous filmmaker said your projects aren't finished, they're only abandoned. You didn't spend a little extra time on it. So, you know. Oh boy, he's on the pile. Yeah. It's nice to have a little bit of a shake up here with what we're doing. I feel like I must be boring because a lot of people just assume that you can whip together art with a snap of your fingers. But, well, some people can do extremely nice looking stuff infinitely faster than I can, obviously. I call myself nice stuff? Are you crazy? But I just tend to get very hung up on details. And especially with the cross-hatching. I want the cross-hatching to look good. Cross-hatching? Cross-hatching. But it's nice to just take the time, do something a little out of the ordinary, because I'm afraid that my art output has slowed down immensely. Ever since I finished Good Words with Sako, I know I haven't been as satisfied with the amount of time working on stuff as I wanted to be. Some of that was life being out of my control, and that's fine. But there's that part of me, whether you would consider it a healthy mindset or not, and honestly, it's probably not a healthy mindset, but there's always that part of me that's like, man, I should just burn the midnight oil, and I just need to stay up and get stuff done that I want to finish, no matter what it does to wreck my sleep cycle. And then I always regret that, because then I go into work the next morning and I'm like, why did I do this? I am dead tired. I am stupid. Once again, the dinosaur stereotypes come into play. But part of what I wish I could explain to people about the artistic process versus the whole AI thing, if you've never been on a journey, you can't understand that journey. Spending hours, days, weeks, months working on something that is very important to you and refining artwork. Like the Sistine Chapel took years to make. And part of the creation of it is the journey, the time investment, and understanding what you're learning and what you're doing wrong and all that good stuff. It's like saying you're going on a long adventure and you want the adventure and you want everything, but then you just you skip to the end of the book. You know? I'm going to get off for bed. Good night. Have a good night, Shively. Be well. Don't get drowned out over there. I mean, I'm guessing it's over. I haven't looked out the window in quite a while, but hope you make it in tomorrow. I don't want to deal with all the crazies by myself. Good night. Thanks for joining. But, well, I'm sure to some it would seem agonizingly painful to watch me just sit here and doodle long term on this image. The thing is, it's what sets it apart. It is what sets the experience apart of creating something and building something, is the experience of doing it in real time and having it be essentially a journey. And if I just feel like if you've never done it, you just don't understand it, which is why it frustrates me that you've never tried anyway. Like, you don't, again, nobody has to be an amazing artist to make art, but I just feel like I'm seeing more and more online personalities. I refuse to say influencers because I hate that term in relation to people that look, I am not an influencer. I don't care what anybody says. Even if I got 2,000 followers tomorrow, I am not an influencer. I am at most a creator of stuff, content, whatever you want to call it. But I am not an influencer, and I hate calling people influencers. But just there's a lot of them I continue to see, and I won't name names, but they do just fall on the side of like, art, putting in effort, what's that about? I don't care, just give me the final product. I just want to see how it looks at the end. Like, but that's not that's not how it works, my guy. It's the classic situation of trying to explain to like a cheater on a test or somebody who doesn't actually engage in the activity that they're taking advantage of, and just saying like, well, you didn't actually learn anything and you haven't actually accomplished anything, so good job. And again, I am not delusional. I am no master artist. I just love it. I love the process. I love designing my own characters and making pages and watching things develop over the course of time, because yeah, it's incredibly difficult sometimes to be patient. But you know what's also great about that? You're learning how to be patient. You're, you know, sorry. I always promise myself I'm not going to go on another AI rant or whatnot, but it's just because I heard some of said opinions today, and it's kind of fresh in my head. But I'm just so passionate about the act of creation itself, the act of making art itself. That's why I refuse to call it AI art, because it's not. It's generated imagery. And for some people, I guess that's just going to be enough, but I will never be flexible on that assessment or that opinion. I might go a little overtime. Just part of me really wants to see this come together a bit. You know, I want to see Raph all triumphant on top of his pile. So I'll see if I can speed it up a little bit. Try and get some better progress going here. Because, you know, I get that it's not the most engaging. Not unless I'm just captivating your attention. Yeah. Which, you know, that's probably a bit much to ask of a boring dinosaur nerd who primarily focuses on older media and niche media. So, I get that. I get it. I'm boring as sin. That's a weird thing to say. When I'm boring as watching a sundial spin. Ugh. But I'm trying. I just want it to look good. And as I believe I mentioned last stream, be your own sharpest critic. Do it so that you enjoy it. Refine your fire. And in the end, that will be to maximum benefit. Happy accidents, folks. Happy accidents. But there's nothing, you know, let me put it this way. Part of the journey and what is so exciting about arts and the act of creation is you see things in your head and you think to yourself, I want to see that thing translated into a different form. I want it to be on a page. I want it to be on the written word. I want it to be out there for people to see in some fashion or another. And so when you just generate something, you're still at the whim of the machine to say, here's what I think it should look like. Granted, we all have our limitations, and sometimes images just don't manifest the way that you envision them in your head. But there's two things to that. One, cool, maybe it's better than you envisioned it, or maybe it taught you something about the process as you are creating your art or your project. 'Cause, you know, you can carve in wood and make things too. That's a form. You build a chair, a shelf, or something. Still takes some artistic ability, but sorry, my brain's getting a little melty. You're still learning the process by doing it by hand. And it's good. It's instructive. It teaches you a lesson about how you can continue to do it in the future. And hopefully do it better and to your satisfaction if you find that you're not satisfied with it. It teaches you to find solutions. And finding solutions, even within art or creative endeavor, is incredibly useful for life as well. You're problem solving. You are seeking ways to overcome your limitations and to find, or to get help. Just to be humble enough to ask for assistance so that you do get closer to what you want. You know, there's so many benefits to human creativity that you cannot learn allowing the machine to do it for you. Like this guy just chilling here with his foot up in the air. Whoops, I seem to have lost my pen. Where did my pen go? Hello? Come back. Come back, pen, come back. There we go. A little bit of a brain fart. My tablet's actually doing better tonight than I expected, so that's a positive. It's after 9, isn't it? Oh, my time, anyway. It is past the hour I had scheduled for the closing period here. I suppose we can we can call the foot that I just drew here the foot's foot. We can call that the stopping point for the night. But no, just if you oh, that's right, I need to save it in clip. There we go. But just to anyone who's never actually done the thing, no matter what it is, if it's art or just creating other stuff in other mediums, building things or whatever, the experience of learning how to do is so utterly satisfying. Like, I don't even like cars. I don't like working on cars. I'm not a car person. Not a car dino. But I enjoyed actually getting in there and learning how to replace a radiator a few weeks ago, because it was something that was of value and benefit to me. I just realized, let's put some drippy drip on the old size here. But I was far more satisfied at the end of the experience knowing that I now knew a lot more about how to fix that engine, not the engine, but that part of the front area, than I would have been just spending an exorbitant amount of money to get it fixed by a mechanic. Like, not only did I save myself a ton of money, but I had the satisfaction at the end of the day of going, huh, wow, I feel cool because I can now actually, with greater confidence, know how to change a radiator and what other things are in the car. It's a lot like creating art and creating things. You learn how to do a thing, you're equipped on how to do a thing, and then you do the thing. And it's great, and you feel good. It makes you feel good when you're able to just actually rely on your own knowledge to... Oops, sorry, hit my mic. But you get my point. I won't belabor the point, but... because it was nice, and I did enjoy it. Do one more foot soldier to wrap this up. Call it good. But yeah, I guess we can finish up with the lines on Raph the next time we do an art stream and whatnot, because I think my next stream I'll actually get back into Subnautica. So we'll save the slaughter of the foot, I guess, as it's shaping, as it's going to have to be titled here. Foot slaughter. We'll save that for the next art stream. Next time we'll go back under the sea, down where it's wet, and the reapers bite your face off. Doody, doo doo doo. That's the plan, anyway. That's my intention. So. But no, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you greatly. Remember, it really is quite a thrill to try and make people laugh, because no matter what your heartache might have been while laughing, for a few seconds you've forgotten about it. And I personally believe that we were all put here for a purpose, to build and not to destroy. And if someday you're not feeling well and you remember some silly little thing that I've said or done and it brings a smile to your face or a chuckle to your heart, then my purpose as your clown has been fulfilled. So... everybody have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week forthcoming, rest of your week forthcoming, I suppose. And we will check you later. Gotcha, Bagoose.